dangerous hug.
Oh,
Got some spikes.
hello, everybody.
People. Hi, Erica.
Hi. Okay, so as she said, we were thinking, we want to do a fireside chat because this
Not a basic-ass fireside chat.
no basic-ass fireside chats. But we know sometimes you come to fireside chats and you're just like, great, it's two people just talking and I can take no takeaways. And the two of us are takeaway queens. We're action-oriented people. And so we're like, how do we make a fireside chat about something super important to have takeaways? So that's what we did. So one thing though, just to set the record straight here. Most people know me from my time at Salesforce. And if you don't know, Stephanie is an amazing Atlassian genius behind the community and the programs. And so you think to yourself, Erica, former Salesforce, Stephanie Atlassian, and you're already, I bet you, tuning out a little bit because you're like, I have one person on my team. Actually, how many people have one person on their team? How many people are the team of community?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
Yeah, that's a lot. So already I bet you're saying, oh, I'm at this fireside chat and it's gonna be useless for me. But it's not. So I want you to put all that away and know that what we remember being here with smaller teams, we remember those times. And so we were like, we're gonna tell you things that could apply to one person, could apply to 5, could apply to 20. So they're scalable things. So please just put all your myths about us aside and know that we know what you're dealing with and that we wanna create an actionable plan for you regardless, right?
+1.
Okay,
+1.
so that's the one thing. And the other thing is, just before we get started, is that product feedback is what we're going to be talking about, and we're going to define that. So before we get started, start us off with just what do we mean by that, and then we'll get into some things.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit of the basics of defining what we mean by feedback. It's such a loaded word. We're not talking about feedback from your manager. We're not talking about feedback on pricing. We really, at the heart of hearts for this conversation, are thinking about product feedback, which does come in many shapes, and we'll touch on that as one of our points. But yeah, we're talking about signals from your customers about the stuff that you're putting out to market and whether or not they want it, need it, or like it.
And to that point, you may be also saying to yourself, well, self, I run a community, it's really hard already. I'm not gonna talk about product feedback on my community, but you know what, at Newsflash, you're gonna have to do it.
Yeah, it's happening.
It's happening, and so you might as well create a scenario where you can learn from it and make it actionable and leverage it and build great relationships, because otherwise, there's these other networks out there, if you haven't heard, that they're just gonna go talk about it there. And when they go talk about it there, you don't have any control, and you don't learn anything from it, and you just can't harness the power. So we thought, you might want to reframe it in your own mind that even if you don't start it off deep diving into some crazy process, which we'll define in a second, you got to do something. Please do something, because doing nothing is just really hard, and you're going to end up having to roll back a whole bunch of stuff when you do decide to maybe do something. So
yeah. I think it's also one of the more intangible values that community offers. I know a lot of people come to these conferences trying to tighten up their story about the value of the community and how they tell that back to the business, and it's hard to quantify and tie it to a dollar, which I know none of us want to hear and groan, but harnessing feedback and actually shaping products in an effective way is extremely valuable to your company. I think there's a lot of leaders at most of your businesses that would probably thank you for thinking about how to up-level customer feedback for them. So yeah, also worth thinking about it that way too. Big value.
And we know that this product feedback thing takes a lot of different shapes and sizes, and so we're going to present to you 2 different types of things that you can think about, and then we're going to follow up very quickly with 5 things that, regardless of which way you go to talk about product feedback or create a product feedback process, that you must do. Or at least we think you must do. And a lot of this has been learned from things that I did not do, and I wish I would have done, and I wish I had an Erica and a Stephanie telling me that I should have done this. So much of what we do, it just comes from having done it. And I didn't even introduce myself, and that's so rude. So quickly, can we do that?
Oh,
Is
yeah,
that on?
I thought we were going to have massive faces on the screen.
I don't know. Okay, but quickly, for those of you that don't know me, I want to do this so fast, because I want to get to this ticker is making me nervous, is so I spent the better part of 2 decades at Salesforce, and I created all of the community programs online and offline from scratch. And that ended up being a very tough journey, but a very rewarding journey. Some of you might have heard it on other presentations. But now, 4 years ago, tomorrow, actually, I went out on my own, and now I help other other companies create those same strategies, some of those strategies for their particular company. So I've been doing that on my own for the last 4 years. Quickly introduce yourself, and then we'll move past that.
Including helping me shape my strategy.
Yes.
As my de facto fairy godmother.
Yes.
Head of community at Atlassian. For us, that's our entire community team. You all know better than anyone what that means, as well as training and certification. So that broader suite of customer engagement and learning bundled up in a big community hug at Atlassian. I've been there for about a decade.
God, has it been?
Been a ride.
You started there when you were 12 too. That's so nice. How lovely. Okay, so let's define a couple different ways why I think it's a match made in heaven, other than I just love this human. Why I think this is going to work really well is we have grown up with two very different types of strategies with regards to product feedback. So should we tackle the easy one first or the harder one first?
Start easy.
Okay. So we'll start with an easy one, which is more of what I'm familiar with from either building this myself or helping build this. It's just more of a structured approach. So it's when you can think of having a discussion or like a suggestion box, but you bring it public. So you have a central place, you have a dedicated space where you vote on stuff, you comment on stuff, and you create a process in which you bring that stuff into your product organization. We kind of, together when we chatted about it, that's more structured. That's a more structured process that you may be familiar with. So that's something that I'm more familiar with, and that's what I've done in the past and what I help build now. But there are other ways, and so I will toss it over to Steph to talk about a little more of an unstructured approach, both of which are awesome, pros and cons.
Yeah.
And then we'll talk about what
at Atlassian, it's definitely been more like a diffused approach, a little bit less structured. And so, for example, product managers going to our community events, product managers doing Ask Me Anythings in the online community, us creating office hours for product managers during big times of change, regular comms through the online community and through the events program about roadmap changes, what's changing and why. And so we really try to use community to just get customers and product teams closer together in a lot of different ways so they can absorb a lot of different signals. Small comments in a meeting, a really great question from somebody at an event that they attended, the feedback they're getting in the community, and an Ask Me Anything. So ours is a bit more distributed throughout community channels. There's not really a destination that we sort of send people to go give us feedback. It's in our forum, it's in our events, it's on social media, and we really try to put product people there so that they can just directly absorb it themselves. And it is definitely much less structured. I think your example with, I think what you're pulling from is Salesforce is even like regular releases tied to when they look at community feedback, and there's specific points that the community has. Like it's very structured down to almost like an algorithm that kind of results in better product for Salesforce, and ours is in true Atlassian fashion, and more like the barefoot t-shirt and jeans person running around asking for feedback from customers in a little bit looser ways.
And both of these are awesome, and there are pros and cons, and we thought, God, we could be up here for 3 hours talking about this because this is really hard stuff. But you can talk to us about pros and cons of those different types of approaches, maybe anytime you want to come and find us, but we know we only had a structured amount of time. So what we thought we'd do is spend the next bit just talking about, regardless of whether you go more of an unstructured approach or a structured approach or a hybrid approach, or you come up with something different, we'll talk to you about the 5 things that, regardless, you really need to focus on doing. So that's what we're going to transition to. So I brought my trusty phone just so I can make sure I remember our cool points. And so the first one I wanted to toss to you was, and this one was like, every one of these was unanimously like, oh my God, yes. So the first one I want to talk about is product management and leadership commitment.
Oh yeah. Happy to talk about that. So I think for probably several years, let's call it, at Atlassian, we were trying bottoms up. So going to individual PMs and asking them to do a thing, or going to individual PMs and asking them to, like, hey, would you start to look at more community feedback as well as surveys and NPS and other stuff that you're doing? And our approach was like, maybe we can get like one win with one team, and let's just start at the bottom and see if we can get everybody on board that way. And I think there's something to be said about a really good win and a success case and just piloting something. So I don't know that this is a black or white, don't do it this way. Depending on Atlassian has like 15 products. So I think that was the wrong approach for us because it's just such a massive distributed product org that bottoms up would have taken us like 10 years to do. Yeah. If you are at a smaller company, actually this might be great for you to start bottoms up and get, one PM that's like, yeah, I'm down. We're like, great, can we do this for like 6 months and will you write a blog about it internally and will you help me tell the story? That might work for you. Where we've had the more success at Atlassian is actually getting product leadership. So at the very top, our VP of product, our head of product, our chief operating officer, our president, our founders, getting them from the top down to remind PMs and highlight, this is great, go to this community event, or we should be doing more of this, engage in this thread. And having top-down leadership ask product managers to do this and get more curious and more community-centric actually really helped floodgates open for us.
Yeah.
So I think that buy-in at the top is just a faster route than the bottoms up, maybe.
Yeah, I feel really conflicted sometimes about this because I think us as community builders, when we put a community out there, there's no right or wrong answer about how you do things. You try things, you pivot, you have to listen and move and adapt. But there is a wrong way to do this. And unfortunately, you're exactly right. If you don't have the leadership at the top saying this is important for us, we want to listen and then we want to actually act, then it's almost like go back and get all your feedback on Reddit then or on Twitter because you need that commitment. Because this is not something by nature product managers want to do. Some of them do, those cool little ones, but best way to do it is to get leadership to say, this is something we're doing. And then you as a community builder need to build the process that has to work and be realistic and reasonable for the product team to be able to activate on it. And so we'll get into that in a second. But I think it's really, really hard. And so if your product leadership is pushing down saying, we don't want to listen to feedback, we want to build product the way we want to build it, maybe don't spend your time here then, and let it happen and bubble up on, and have some fires maybe be the reason why you bring it back. But it is really, really hard to gain traction, but one at a time like that. Yeah. And then what you get to do is build a process that works for most, and then reward and recognize that people go above and beyond. The product managers that really find value in it. So I find that's kind of a thing that I feel like you really need to do.
Yep.
All right. So that's that one. Product management. Support, check. Next one. This is a big one. This is defining roles and responsibilities.
Oh, yeah.
So, you want me to start off with this one?
Yeah. Give me a second.
Yeah. So this one's a really big one because just as I was saying, product managers by nature, and maybe there's going to be an evolution, but they don't talk to customers as much as you do. You live and breathe talking to customers. You live out loud 100% of the time. They do not. They're product builders. They're there to build product that the customers will use. And so it's not very natural necessarily for them to understand how to engage with customers, as weird as that sounds. And this is not a across-the-board statement, but you as a community builder need to define the role that they play. So this is what we're going to be asking you to do. Respond to feedback on a monthly basis. The feedback that comes in at this status or gets this much votes. We're going to ask you to flip a status and then make a comment, or whatever is the process you're creating. Create that process, explain their role, and then just say, as a community builder, here's my role. I'm going to protect you. I'm going to provide guidance so that you don't get crapped on if you say negative, if you have to say something's not coming. I'm going to coach you on how to write feedback on and follow up with a post on the community. So you're providing them very clear understanding of this is your role and this is my role. It is not all for you. We're creating it so that everybody understands the role that they play. This is what product ops, if you have that. This is what community, this is what product managers do. So that's what I'm saying that must be dialed in, is help them understand those roles and responsibilities.
Yeah, and I think that's important up front. If you're going to a product team and asking them to start to engage in community or, again, really take that feedback in a meaningful way, we definitely had a lot of enablement to do with I don't know how to deal with angry customers. I'm like, well, I don't know either. You just kind of learn that by getting into it, I guess. But we really needed to create a lot of enablement for them around, all right, if you engage with an angry customer, here's what to do and what not to do. If it escalates, here's how you can get a community manager involved. So taking those roles and responsibilities and getting super specific about it, that's like, you have a support net that's around you as a PM. So like, go talk to them and we've got you and here's how we got you. Getting really tactically into some of the roles and responsibilities, I think helped with some of the heartburn that PMs were feeling about being put into that hot seat, and what they perceived might go wrong. So I do think like getting roles and responsibilities and really put yourself into the shoes of the PM who's like, maybe assuming that they're going to get like tomatoes thrown at them, or whatever it is in their head that they're so afraid of or think is going to happen. As a community team, again, because you're in it with these people all day, every day, you can really speak authentically about the people that they're going to be interacting with and what happens if it does get a little spicy. So I think roles and responsibilities and that full picture of how's that going to go down, and if it goes sour or if it goes south, here's what's going to happen.
Another thing that
helps.
I think is so good about that is that there's another role that we sometimes fail to do, which is set the expectations with the community members.
Oh, yeah.
So this is a big transition when you launch this beautiful process, whether it's unstructured or structured, whatever it is. There's an expectation of what the community expects. So being super clear and providing that to the product team and saying, hey, listen, we're also going to be telling the customers these things. So we're holding them accountable as well, of what they can expect. We're going to send them very clear understanding about what does this mean for them? What can they expect? So really showing them that you are holding them accountable and them got product accountable, you got everybody. That's why this was a win-win-win, is because this really does create a scenario where everybody can win. The customer can win because they feel heard. The product team can win because they're building the best product of their life with the customer. And you as a community builder win because you've got incredibly engaged and insights coming from the community. So that's the last thing on that one, yeah? Cool. All right. What number was that? 2?
2.
Number 3. Ooh, you love this one.
Oh, God.
Infrastructure.
Infrastructure.
Infrastructure. Oh, what a gross word. All right, what do you mean by infrastructure?
So again, we're in this really distributed corner where we've got product managers just descending into our online community, for example. And when we then try to elevate and tell maybe a Jira PM, so a Jira is one of Atlassian products, Jira PM sits down and they're like, what's the biggest thing for me to work on right now, right? That's not something that you get from jumping into a thread with like a couple of people, or that you just post in a question in the community of like, what should we build now, right? Like that's just gonna get crazy. So even though I'm in this sort of end of the spectrum with the diffused, less structured feedback, we need infrastructure in place. For example, a dashboard that kind of applies themes and sentiment to like, okay, these are the 10 posts in your online community that got the most views. 3 of them are full of a lot of angry feedback. Let's go look into those 3. Who are the people looking at that? So we've needed to create a way to actually synthesize a lot of chatter in our online community. We have about 20,000 posts every month, including comments. So having a Jira PM sit down and somehow consume that is crazy. Yeah, so we do need a little structure in place even in our stage. Similarly, a way to track what teams are going to community events, a way to track the satisfaction at events that product teams go to. Those are things that help us internally tell a more robust story about feedback around community. So yeah, for us, even though the user experience is quite unstructured and just diffused across all the community touch points, internally we've need to put quite a bit of structure around how to synthesize actual takeaways for product teams. If you've got 20,000 voices screaming at you a month, how do you know what actually to work on? You can't get that answer from going to an event or engaging in a thread. You'll get customer centricity, you'll get depth, you'll get empathy. But big themes, number one thing to ship for the market that will actually solve problems, you need some infrastructure for that.
Huge.
So we've built that out on the back end, sort of like what y'all have built, or what Salesforce built, very much the public eye. We built that into sort of listen very collectively, all the channels, not favoring one channel over the other, which is something that we talked about. Helping PMs not just kind of cherry pick specific things that align with what they already wanted to work with. So yeah, there's definitely some stuff to put in place. And like you mentioned as well, once a month, this is the expectation. Like some structure is important, and for us, it's very much behind the scenes.
And even though the one I was talking about was structured on the outside, there's still different ways that you have to create that structure on the inside as well, because you have to back to the setting expectations for the product managers, you want this to work. You want to create a scenario that they're even excited to listen. And so you do have to make changes as to where the feedback goes. So maybe it's a public space, but it moves its way to another place that moves it to Jira, or it moves it to wherever they're processing their feedback product board, or whatever you're using. So making that process, also knowing that even though you have a structured process, there's still going to be feedback coming in from other channels. So how do you bring that into a structured process? Because you cannot ask a product leader to look at these 16 places. You have to have a dashboard. You have to be able to say, go look at this, here's the trends, and here's across all the different spectrums of our customers, not just from this one. And so that's going to be really important to do. So infrastructure, like it or not, I see one person that loves infrastructure in the front row, and so you can talk to her about infrastructure. All right. Her name's Tifoda, by the way, if you don't know her. And then one more. This one we can zip through, and then we get to the last one because we're running out of time, is you already said this a little bit, feedback comes in many shapes and sizes. And I think, why don't you just riff on that for a bit?
Yeah, I think about this a lot, actually. So, feedback as in like, what should I do better, Erica?
Yeah.
And that's like very formal feedback.
Yeah.
Like, Jira, do better at this, change this in the product. That's explicit feedback. I believe there's actually a lot of signals though, like people attending a community event. A lot of attendance at an event about a certain topic is a signal that that's a hot topic. There's something there. What did they talk about? What were some of the feedback from the event? So don't look just explicitly for like posts that say the word feedback, right? To make it very overt. People attending an event on a certain topic is signals. People not going to an event or not engaging in a thread is a signal, right? So for us, we try to get really curious about, again, how to tell that full picture. There's explicit feedback shared, explicit feedback proactively sought, but then there's also a lot of signals from how your customers are and aren't engaging with things that you try through community. That you go a level deeper and think of that as like, what's this actually telling me? Is it that this was a bad topic, or this isn't of interest, or So I think there's a lot of different signals depending on what the programs that you've built around your community, or for us even training, people not consuming training content. That's not helpful.
Yeah.
Something's not helpful about that content. Is it the product? Are people not adopting the product? Is it this content's not good? So obviously going really far and wide for signals can get you a more well-rounded, I think, kind of set of takeaways than just looking for like beep, beep, boop, my feedback is X. Because that stuff's great and it's very clear and easy to identify, but maybe missing some of the unspoken feedback. And as y'all, I think, know, as community builders, sometimes those squeaky wheels are overpowering other voices that maybe aren't directly shouting at you, but might have something meaningful to say, and maybe they're sharing it in a different way.
And there's an opportunity to help the customers along understand how to consume this product, or what product feedback even looks like. I think we talked about in the same vein that customers say to you, well, just change the color of that button. It's so easy. Just do it. Just do it.
Everyone voted on it. Just do it.
Just do it. What is wrong with you? Change that pick list value. But you know that is very hard. So sometimes it's an opportunity for different shapes and sizes of feedback to help bring your customers along in the process and give them a glimpse into what it's like to build software. If you're a software vendor, like, what does that process look like? It is, because it's actually really hard and they don't understand it. And a brilliant product leader who I will follow anywhere she goes because she sets the expectation of product feedback. Her name is Shauna Wolverton. And she did an exercise with a bunch of very high-profile customers that we have, and very, very engaged customers, and it's a monopoly exercise, you might have heard. Basically, you have a set of features that you're struggling with, and all features are not created equal. Some are easy, some are harder, so they have bigger dollar values or littler dollar values. You sit at a table and you say, here's your money. This is a collection of customers basically at a table. Now you go and try to prioritize it together. What do you want? And then all of a sudden people are like, oh, this actually is really hard because I want those 5 easy features that cost nothing, supposedly, but this one other customer wants the very hard one that costs all the money. So it's helping people understand like what it takes to build software and just giving them an insight into how hard it is. It sometimes is really helpful. It just sets a little bit of expectation setting from the customer. Okay, last but not least, my favorite one, evolving processes over time.
Yes, do not set it and forget it.
Yes, do not set it and forget it.
And don't promise something you probably aren't going to be able to do at scale.
Yeah.
Perceived loss is more powerful than gain for people. So if you've given them a toy and then a year later you have to take that away, that can go really, really bad. So just be mindful, not even curious about how things should evolve over time, but even when you launch something new, okay, if our budget goes away next year, does this still happen? If the product org changes, does this still work out? What if we grow from 10,000 users to 100,000 users? Is this still gonna, do the wheels come off at some point? So definitely question when and how to evolve your process, and even when you're setting out on something new. Do a little pre-mortem. How is this going to end up bad? What are we not thinking about down the road that maybe we should start NDA signing our people now instead of waiting until we've got 4,000 people in a program to then figure that out. So
And even if you can't foresee, because sometimes you can't foresee all the future, but just don't forget about it. You sadly learned this the hard way. Building a process for something with 40 product managers does not work when you have 400 or 500 or 1,000 product managers. So try to think about it first before it blows up and breaks and goes crazy. Try to think about how you just evolve your processes as you go. And don't set it and forget it. Think about it and just try to evolve it over time. I guess I'll just end on that. Amazing
Don't be afraid to ask people.
Yeah.
What they think, what's working,
feedback.
what's not. Get feedback on feedback. On feedback.
So meta.
For feedback.
Okay, I know that was super fast, and I really want to talk forever about this, but we're around.
Come to our Q&A.
Oh yeah, we're having a Q&A, I guess. So if anything we said made you mad or curious, or you want to take it a different direction, please do. This is a contentious topic, but bottom line, let's see, really quickly, evolve it over time, get product to buy off.
Yep. Good infrastructure in place, even if what you're shipping isn't super structured on the outside.
Yeah.
Yep.
And don't be afraid. Do it, because it's going to be done somewhere else. So just do it.
Yeah. It's already happening.
All right. Thank you.